Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who don't know, my name's Rich and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, and we're here to share a love of motorsport, nothing else. We can be found on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram primarily, and these videos can be found on YouTube as well. So just search for the Hard Compound on any of those. Look for a lovely yellow and white and black logo, and come and give us a follow and join in the fun. We put out 3 written articles a day in the morning, lunchtime, and evening here in the UK. These go out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and they cover all motorsports, as I say. They take the form of race reviews, race previews, throwbacks, breaking news, new liveries, driver changes, and anything that's going on in the world of in the world of motorsport. Excuse me. Yeah, plenty going on. In case you hadn't noticed, we also do live video interviews, just like this one. And just like this one, these are streamed on our Facebook in the videos section, on our Twitter, and on our YouTube channel in the live section. They're also saved there afterwards, so you can watch them back as well. We've done well over 100 of these. I'm not going to name all the guests that we've had, but we've had a few. We've had the honour and the privilege of speaking with the likes of Mr. Mario Andretti and Mr. Jackie Ickx. Just last week, we spoke with Mr. Jackie Oliver, founder of Arrows, an XF1 racer and 24 Hours of Le Mans winner. We've spoken with a lot of the British touring car grid from the past and the present. We've spoken with people that have raced in Formula One and IndyCar, Indy 500 winners, sports car racers, guys such as Takuma Sato and Emanuele Pirro and Mika Salo. We've spoken with Derek Warwick, Stefan Johansson, David Brabham, Mark Blundell, Eddie Cheever from the touring car world. We've spoken with John Cleland and Steve Soper, and many, many more. And in the last few weeks, we've spoken with guys like Tim Harvey, Mr. Derek Daly, with Callum Ilott, and many, many more. We've also had a few guests who have done well in their GT racing. We've spoken with Mr. Max Gertz recently. We've spoken with Carrie Schreiner. And our guest tonight is also rather good at racing GT cars, Lamborghinis, presently. He's a factory driver. He is a British GT champion. He's taken class wins in the 24 Hours of Spa. He's raced in the 24 Hours of Daytona and much, much more. Not bad, given that he's only 24. We're going to bring him in right now. Please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Mr. Sandy Mitchell.
Good evening.
Sandy?
I'm good, yeah. Yourself?
Yes, not too bad. Not too bad. Nice to be in the warm. It's been a cold few days.
It has, yeah. It's a bit of snow on the ground here, so yeah, certainly a cold week.
Absolutely. Sorry, warm coffee there needed. Just gonna change my camera here. There we go. Pardon the long and rambling intro. It does tend to get a bit long.
No worries. Some big names to follow up there, but yeah, it's cool to see the page doing well, and yeah, great to see so many people and stories along the way and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. We like to keep the stories alive, especially of the older drivers who want to keep their stories alive, and guys like you who are very much making their way and making waves. In your case, I've been following you for a few years. Well, very impressive. Just very quickly, I want to turn my attention to the comment section. Hello, folks. There's a few of you tuning in already. That's lovely. If you have any comments or questions, do put them in the comments section. I'll work them in as best we can. Or if you want to have a chat amongst yourselves, then you can do that as well. As I said, we're here to talk motorsport. So all very good. Right, firstly, Sandy, I've got my little tribute to you and Scotland.
Yeah, I noticed that
behind me.
Looking good. I like it.
As always, we've had a few drivers from north of the wall, I suppose. Come on, we've had like John Clennon's been on, and Rory Butcher's been on, and Jody Sloss and Joe Tanner and Ronan Pearson and stuff. So we're keeping the tradition going.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for coming on, much appreciated. And Apologies for grabbing you at Brands Hatch. I had kind of preempted you with an email, but apologies for grabbing you in the signing session there.
No, no worries. Good to meet you. Obviously, we've had a bit of contact recently over the years and stuff, and yeah, always see your stories about whether it's Barwell or British GT and motorsport in general. So yeah, good to finally get a bit more of a chat at Brands, and yeah, here we are now.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come to Brands. Obviously, it didn't quite go the way we wanted on that day, but we will come to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, firstly, you've been out in Spain, haven't you, in the last few days?
Yeah, it was the Lamborghini Super Trofeo World Finals, which is an event that I've previously competed in, but this time wasn't competing in, just there, working with Lamborghini on more of the road car side of things. So letting some customers, potential customers, and sponsor guests experience some of the road cars, whether that was on track or in paddock activities. And then, yeah, a bit of networking stuff while we are there, and getting some early thoughts for next year. So, yeah, nice to get a bit of sunshine at this time of year. And then, yeah, it was pretty chilly getting off the plane again, coming home.
Yeah, a bit of a change of scene. 'Cause it was down in Jerez, wasn't it? And yeah, slightly different to.
Yeah, south of Spain, although Spain's had it pretty rough recently as well, a lot of flooding and
Yes.
things. So it was actually pretty mixed. Some of the races were in the wet, some in the dry. So yeah, it was a good challenge, and actually did a little bit of co-coms on a couple of the races in the commentary box, which was a new challenge for me. So yeah, always experiencing new challenges at the track, which is good fun.
Yeah, lovely. That's another string that can be added to the bow, maybe in
Yeah.
future. Absolutely.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, hopefully I'll be more on the track than in the commentary box in the next few
Yes,
years. But yeah, you never know what's around the corner.
that's perhaps for a few years' time. Just on that subject, actually, we should send all our best wishes to everyone in around like Valencia and Barcelona. It's been absolutely horrendous for a lot of people. So yeah,
Yeah.
hope everyone can recover and get back on track soon. Absolutely right. Excuse me. So yes, right. Oh, actually, you kind of mentioned the road car Lamborghini. They've just announced a new one, haven't they? There's a new Lamborghini coming out, which I'm very excited about. I think the kid in me always loves a Lamborghini, and yeah, there's a.
Yeah, it's kind of that poster on the wall kind of
Yeah.
car, isn't it? And yeah, the new Temerario is also going to be the new GT3, which has been announced as well. So it'll follow on from the Huracan, which next year I'm pretty sure will have been around for 10 years as a GT3 race car. Obviously, 3 generations of that now, racing the Evo 2. So yeah, it's going to be exciting, completely new car from really the ground up pretty much, and a V8 instead of a V10. So it's going to be quite a lot different, which is exciting, and should be on track 2026 in terms of racing. So yeah, we'll see the first glimpse of that next year.
Oh, looking forward to that. Always like to have a new, have a new car out and
Yeah.
something else to look at and listen to and perv over in some cases. Which we all do still. Lovely. But okay, so that's sort of Lamborghini sort of in the future and very much in the present. What I'd like to do though is go right back to the start, because you didn't start anywhere near Lamborghinis, and you didn't even start on tarmac, did you? You kind of first went racing in like an off-road buggy type thing. Where did the interest in motorsport come from, and specifically where did the little off-roading come from?
Yeah, it was. I guess Colin McRae was a big influence to me when I was a kid, and obviously a fantastic driver to watch, and really grabbed the British motorsport fans for a number of years. And yeah, I guess family and my dad were a fan, and me as well as a young kid. So I think that kind of naturally led to wanting to be a rally driver, which led to me being lucky enough to have a little off-road buggy that I went around the field in. And yeah, even from that kind of early time, wanted to go quicker, and yeah, had my dad out timing me, and yeah, so racing against myself pretty much, but having a bit of fun while doing it. And yeah, it's funny, like at the time, completely innocent and having a bit of fun, but probably actually helped me quite a lot when I then went into competitive racing, because at that age you just pick everything up so naturally, and being able to just have fun with it and roam around the field learning understeer and oversteer without really being taught it, just having those feelings, and yeah, trying to get faster. And yeah, I think all that has helped me in my career looking back, which is quite funny to think now.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess it's the ideal place to start. Obviously, there's a few youngsters out there doing like the grass track racing, and like British touring car champion, like Colin Turkington began doing the grass track and the off road. And as you say, it's a great way to learn control because it's not so sticky as tarmac.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this was like age 4, 5. This was like super young, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
how long did it take for you to kind of want to? Maybe not want to compete with others, but be aware that there was another way you could go racing on tarmac with karts and compete against other people. What kind of age was it that came around?
Yeah, I guess that was probably about 8 years old. Me and my dad went down to the Knockhill race circuit, and at the time, the MSA, which is now Motorsport UK, had a subsidized drive for kids to be able to. It was called Let's Go Karting, and it was basically try and get more younger people into go karting. And yeah, it was, you could go along. I think it was about a fiver and get 15 minutes or a couple of quick sessions on the track, and you kind of did it in like a few weeks block and got scored each week, and areas that you could improve and things like that. So that was the first kind of test, and the first time that I was against other kids rather than just going around the field myself. So yeah, that was interesting. And we'd been around Knockhill a little bit at that point as a family, because my dad had done a little bit of club racing there, and so then we kind of I knew of some people in go karting, and that was the first step. So yeah, I was really eager, and would ask my dad when could I have a go of the go karts when I was watching them at Knockhill, and yeah, it was cool to have a go finally.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a word on Knockhill because it is a fantastic circuit. I've been a couple of times. It's a very long way from where I am, but
Yeah,
it's just a brilliant circuit. It's crazy, isn't it? It's just got a bit of everything in such a short lap. Obviously, you were on the kart track next to it,
yeah,
but it's a fantastic place to go racing. Yeah, there's a couple of like businesses guys that we've spoken to have been on here who are based there, and obviously
yeah.
it's run with like Gordon and Rory are still there, and it's a beautiful place to go racing. I mean, it's absolutely unique, isn't it?
Yeah, the track itself is very unique as well. Like, pretty much every corner is unlike anywhere else, really. So yeah, very unique, and yeah, the local guys tend to do really well there, whether it's British touring cars or any of the feeder series or even the Formula Fords and things like that. So yeah, going along, touring cars as well at that point was what I like to watch. And yeah, so going along to Knockhill each year for the touring car race weekends was always a big thing and something that I really looked forward to. So yeah, to see so many fans at Knockhill, it always gets a fantastic turnout for the touring cars and the super bikes as well. So yeah, it's definitely a place that means a lot to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, if you haven't been, definitely try and get there for for either for the BSB or the touring cars. It's or for anything else. It's a fantastic place to go racing.
Yeah,
Slightly too small for the GTs, perhaps, but it probably
yeah,
wouldn't work.
yeah. It's a shame. It's obviously a local track for many, many years in terms of car racing, but I'm pretty sure I've only raced there one race weekend, which would be the F4 days, which was as because that was part of the touring car package. So yeah, funny how things work. That I've done many laps around there and worked there as an instructor for a few years, but not raced there very often.
Oh, crikey! Maybe sometime in the future there'll be an opportunity
Absolutely,
to
yeah,
get into
definitely.
something. Absolutely right. So yeah, just to go back to the start, as we said, you kind of went karting, and I guess it got to a point where you did that little kart like set of sessions, and I guess the bug bit, and you wanted to do it like properly in inverted commas. When did you? I mean, how did you go about just entering competitions? Was it just a case of arriving and driving, or were you able to pick up a cart from somewhere? Or
Yeah, it was. We were quite lucky that just through people that we'd met at Knockhill, and doing a little bit of racing there as a family, some other people that we knew were karting, mainly up in the north of Scotland, some family friends up there. So yeah, I went up to Golspie at the North of Scotland Kart Club, and first went to watch a kind of race meeting with some family friends up there. And yeah, as soon as I saw what was going on, I was just dying to have a go, and probably asking my dad every day if we could do it. So yeah, eventually, very lucky to be able to get an old go-kart. It was pretty old, but it was perfect for starting on. And then I remember after the first few races, we got quite a new one, and went immediately faster. And yeah, that was when things, I was getting the bug for it, and yeah, ultra competitive. So yeah, the people up at the North of Scotland Kart Club were fantastic and super welcoming. And yeah, the grids up there were actually outside of Lark Hall, sort of Glasgow direction. The biggest grids at that time were up there, and I think it had a great kind of feel around the paddock, and just everyone competing. So yeah, we called it our local track, even though it was still 4 hours for me, and I'm not super north in Scotland. So yeah, Golspie's right up at the top, and yeah, great place to be. And yeah, really look back on those days as still some of the most fun, and yeah, great place.
Yeah, fantastic, and obviously like, a great proving ground. Not just for learning how to race, but obviously just to be around the buzz of a race event and all the stuff that goes with it. Obviously, you began competing. You got a bit more competitive personally and competitive on track with the machinery and stuff like that. One thing we did actually, you did say on the email, was it 2011 the first time you moved up to Super One, and you raced in England for the first time, which that must have been like massive at the
Oh
time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the grids in Scotland were good. I think we had sort of maybe like 18 to 20 carts at big club races, or Scottish Championship in the cadet times. And yeah, I'd won the Scottish Championship 2010, which was my second year, and I was sort of planning to stay in the cadet class till I was about 12. So the next step was naturally to race down south, and do the British Championship basically. So yeah, it was a big step, absolutely full grids, 30, 40, sometimes more carts. And yeah, it was a big step up. The level was higher. There was a lot more teams involved. Even though me and my dad kind of still ran it as a dad and lad kind of thing. And yeah, it was fantastic. And the first race weekend was a good one, because it was the first time I raced in England was at Wilton Mill, and it was pretty much the club meeting, which normally happens once a month for each track. But it was the one just the week or two before the British Championship. So what tends to happen is all the British Championship racers basically do the club round, which is normally a week or two before the race, as basically a test session. So it's super competitive. It's normally, as competitive as the British Championship week normally. And yeah, it was wet because it was the first race of the season. So typical British Championship style, the races was wet. And I had quite a lot of experience of that from racing the previous couple of years in Scotland. And after all the heats and the qualifying, we were lining up for the final, which is the main race at the end of the weekend on a Sunday. And we were going off pole position, which was pretty crazy to think, and a proud moment to have the S plate, which was the Scottish champion, which basically replaced your number. So the top 10 numbers were reserved for the top 10 in the British Championship the year before. And then there was a few special ones like the O plate, which was a 0 for the British Open champion. And then the S one was the Scottish champion. So yeah,
Wow.
I was proudly wearing that on the front row. And I don't think the final went so well, but it was a cool, cool experience. And yeah, kind of nice to arrive and be on the pace quickly, and yeah, really be challenging at the front.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, if it didn't go well, we're not going to mention the final. But I mean, it's not. I mean, obviously, it's nice to win, but and do well. But sometimes in that situation, your first time in that environment, racing in the British Championship, and to be on pole, I mean, that was obviously beyond what you're expecting anyway. So that must have been very, very cool. And I've got here, like, throughout the season, you had some solid results. You finished sixth in that first championship, I think. Do
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah.
Which you've got to be happy with, your first, on the national thing. So much so you came back the following year in 2012, and did even better. Second overall. I mean, by this point, you must be thinking, I can do this. I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
When did you start thinking kind of like maybe not long term, but when did you just allow yourself to start thinking about possibly cars?
Yeah, I guess it was actually around that time because when I was the year that we came second in the British Championship, I'd started to speak to a couple of car teams, and I went on to the Arden Young Racing Driver Academy,
Okay.
which a team that I then raced for in F4, which at the time they were competing in what's now Formula 2, Formula 3, Formula Renault, all those kind of championships. And yeah, they made a young driver academy sort of 2013 time, 2012, and picked a few British karting drivers to join. And you got a bit of mentorship, obviously, from an experienced single seater team, and you also got access to use their simulator in the factory and things like that. So that was probably where things started to get a bit more serious because I was doing race reports after each weekend, which is something that I still do now. And sending them in. I was also on the simulator, kind of preparing to go into single seaters at some point and learn a few of the British tracks and also how to drive a car because it was quite different from racing cars. So yeah, all those kind of things were kind of going on in the background for my last 2 or 3 years of karting, which yeah was which everyone kind of does now. But I think at that time it was relatively new to have kids that young kind of training on simulators and things like that. Whereas now it's quite normal for kids to have simulators at home or be part of an academy at that kind of age.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it was probably a new thing. 'Cause I mean, we'll come on to that series in a minute and what it became.
Mhm.
I have just seen actually in the comment section, Emily Eaton. Hello, Emily. She's got a question about Lamborghinis, which we will come to. Emily, no problem. She's also asked if she can get your autograph. I'm sure we can sort that out, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we can. That's cracking. We can sort out maybe a signed photo. We can sort something out for that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
Rich will be able to get that set. I can send it over or we can sort something out.
yeah. I'll contact you later on, Emily, and we'll sort it out. Good stuff.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Just one last thing. One thing on the karting though. I mentioned you came second, now, and I hope this isn't a sore point. But you came second, which on the face of it is great, of course.
Yeah.
But you missed the title by 3 points.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know if this is a sore point. I'm sorry if it is. What?
No, it's
How
yeah,
did it all happen?
it's all good. I don't mind talking about
All right. Okay.
it.
How did it all happen? Was it just a case of you just not were beaten? That sounds terrible, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
that the
it was
yeah,
just one of those seasons where it was super close all year. There was kind of three of us, Cian Dewis being one who's obviously
mm,
gone on to race a lot and I think won Porsche Carrera Cup, if I'm not wrong.
yes,
And Luke Widder, who was the eventual champion. So yeah, we kind of had the three of us that would often break away in the races, and we were kind of the standout three in the championship. And it was just one of those where it was really close. Cadet racing tends to be super close because you're racing small carts that are reasonably very low in horsepower, still quick, but more so that you're going around the corners quick and you just keep that momentum going. So they're not very quick off the line. So yeah, the bump drafting and the slipstream is a massive effect. So no one really breaks away in any races. So it pretty much comes down to a last lap battle every time. And it was between the three of us very often. So yeah, it was just up and down all year, super close. And we literally went into the last round either joint on points or 1 point difference,
wow,
me and Luke, which basically meant whoever finished in front of the other one would win the championship. And I remember it being a really scrappy race. It wasn't anything like the other ones where the three of us tended to break away. It was another driver started defending early on, and there was a big train of carts, and it was really scrappy, which was not what I wanted. But
it's getting
no,
messy.
just the way it went, and unfortunately, I think finished 1 or 2 spots just behind him, and yeah, that was the way it went. But yeah, really fun, and obviously you look back and maybe 1 or 2 little mistakes throughout the year that could have changed things, but yeah, it was good experience.
Yeah, I guess that's the same for other drivers as well, isn't it? They'll look at it and say, "Well, I might not have needed the last race," or yeah. So there's always to look at it, isn't there? So
Yeah, it's funny
um,
when you look back, you always tend to look at the bad luck weekends or the things that didn't go your way. But often in the season, there's things that do go your way, and you do get a bit lucky at points as
yeah,
well. So, and it's easy to forget them as well.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely right. Just one more year in on karting because you did another couple of years thereafter. Excuse me. 2014, obviously big year. I've got that you won the Super One Series, the Rotax Junior Championship.
Yeah,
That in any championship, in whatever you do, it's got to feel good, isn't it? I mean, you must have some very happy memories of that year,
yeah.
that kind of
Uh,
final year.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, the best season of karting and one of the best seasons that I've had in general, really. And yeah, like you said, to win that was just what we'd worked towards since the first race in karting, basically. And yeah, so it felt like a long time coming, and the grid was super competitive. The British Championship at that time was really highly regarded, so quite a lot of European drivers came over to compete in the British Championship as well.
Oh,
So
there was
there
Yuri
was,
Vips was on the grid,
yeah,
wasn't
Yuri Vips, Richard
he? Yeah,
Vershaw, who's F2 driver, and a couple of
really.
other big names that didn't go on to do so much outside of karting, but were highly competitive at the
Yeah.
time.
Wow.
Belgian guys and things as well. So yeah, it was fantastic, and took a couple of wins early on in the season, and kind of just had to try and hang on to the championship after that. And yeah, it was fantastic feeling to cross the line. And in the last race, I only had to finish 25th or better to win
All
the
right.
championship. So a little bit different to the Honda Cadet Championship decider a couple of years before, but not necessarily any easier because I was trying to just not crash the whole time and
Which is easier said
avoid
than done, isn't it, with car?
exactly, yeah, and avoid any other drivers that were coming near me. So yeah, crazy race. I think I was leading at one point, ended up finishing 10th, and but it was enough to get the job done.
Yeah, get it done. Fantastic. Have a bit of celebration afterwards, and I guess that coincided with the Ardent Academy and all that was going on there that you mentioned before. For those who don't know, Arden Motorsport was set up, or co-set up at least, by Christian Horner, who has gone on to do something or other. I think with yeah, so he's gone somewhere in the world.
Yeah, he's done well.
Yeah, he's done all right. And I guess that was the natural next step, wasn't it, to get into cars and everything through Arden and what you were doing with them, which was the MSA Formula Championship, which is now essentially F4, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same championship as British F4. They just didn't have the rights to the names in the first year, so they went with that name. But yeah, same car as the next few years, and yeah, big championship to be involved in.
Yeah. I mean, I always ask this to people, and because when they step out of karts, because obviously people take different routes. Those who, like yourself, who went from karts into single seaters,
Yeah.
even though it's kind of slicks and wings and all that kind of thing, and it's bigger and whatever, they kind of transition to it relatively easily. Whereas others who have gone, say, into junior saloon cars or into Ginettas or something like that, they kind of struggled with it because obviously with those cars you've got the depth perception and roll and brake loadings and all that kind of stuff. How did you find the transition into cars? I mean, you must have been proper excited,
Oh, yeah,
on the
absolutely. I
first
mean,
time at
yeah,
least.
and the fact it was on the touring car package was a big thing for me as well at the
Yeah,
time. Yeah, touring cars was what I watched growing up more than other motorsport types, including F1 and all that. So, yeah, to be on that package and racing at all those circuits for the first time was amazing. And
wow.
yeah, I felt like I knew a few of them just from watching on TV or playing PlayStation and things like that. So yeah, to actually be on the big circuits was amazing. And yeah, it was a big championship. The transition was good. I think all the work that I'd done with the Young Racing Driver Academy on the simulator and that kind of thing, and fitness, getting your neck strength up and things like that when you're quite young, is a tough thing to do. So yeah, all that was really helpful. I think it was a reasonably smooth transition. I think a lot of guys who are quick in karting, like you say, take to the single seater quite well. It's almost feels like a big go-kart in some ways, just with a bit more pitch and roll, but not as much as a GT car. So yeah, it went smoothly, and yeah, it was a good opening season really against some more experienced drivers. I think I turned 15 in the March of that season, and the first race was April, so it was
Wow.
yeah, really tight to be able to do it in the first place. And at the time, you couldn't do British senior karting, so the
Mm.
choice was kind of do another year of junior karting again, but I'd won the championship already, or they lowered the age for this F4 car to 15 because it was a new carbon tub and the safety was much better and things like that. So, yeah, I couldn't do senior karting, but I could go and race cars around all the British race circuits, which was pretty crazy. But yeah,
Wow.
we took the opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely, when that opportunity comes up, if it's either that or karts that you've already won the championship in, it's
Yeah,
almost a no-brainer if it's doable, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah. Just seeing Andy Forrest in the comments. Evening, Andy. His lad Hamish has just done the Ginetta Winter Series, I believe, and done rather well. So hello, Andy. He said
nice.
yes. It was also Mark Webber, wasn't it? Was involved with Arden to begin with, I believe.
Yeah, yeah,
BMW Arden, and he's gone on to do stuff. So
just a little bit.
yeah, he's currently managing Oscar Piastri, I believe, isn't he? And others.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean that you kind of touched on that first season. I saw that you had fairly steady start. Thruxton, Brands and Donington, but you had a weekend at Thruxton. Just from looking at the results,
Yeah.
it all just kind of clicked there. I mean, Thruxton's my nearest one circuit. It's just down the road there. Fantastic circuit, high speed, grippy. You took, was it pole, fastest lap, and a win in for race one.
Yeah.
Did you feel like that had been coming in the first few races?
I felt like it was going in the right direction. I mean, it was such a tough grid that year. There was like Lando Norris was on the grid, who's
Yeah,
another one who's gone on to do a few bits in the motorsport world, and
yeah,
then yeah, lots of other drivers. Almost if you look at the top 10, are all kind of still racing at, or professional drivers at some point. With Colton Herta being an IndyCar, and Matthias
yeah,
Leist was an IndyCar at one point as well.
yeah,
Inam Ahmed was also world karting champion at that time. So yeah, the grid was absolutely stacked, full of names, and yeah, it was a tough grid. But I had a good Dan Tickton being on there as well. So yeah, I had a good opening couple of rounds, kind of improving throughout, and had some good races at Donington if I remember right. And then yeah, Thruxton was a circuit that suited me well. I liked the high speed nature of it. And yeah, I think my engine must have been performing well that weekend because it's definitely a track with a lot of straights, and especially in an F4 car, you're on full power for a long time. So yeah, everything just kind of came together for that weekend, and yeah, it was definitely the standout weekend of that year.
yeah, absolutely. And I guess it kind of must have given you that confidence boost as well. Okay, the car's working great, but I think it's only your third or fourth round of the series,
Yeah,
and to be right on the pace, winning races because you won two races that weekend as well.
yeah.
It must have been a huge shot in the arm, thinking, "Oh, I can do this, definitely."
Yeah, absolutely. Because yeah, you throughout your career, you're always having those moments whether it's tough races and things when yeah, you're not sure how it's going to go. So no, it was definitely a big confidence boost, and yeah, going into that second half of the season really helped, and got some good results also at Knockhill, which was really nice because I think that was probably my best weekend outside of Thruxton,
Yeah,
which was really good, and nice to do that in front of family and friends and a lot of people who have supported me and helped me get to that point. So yeah, that was a special weekend as well.
yeah, that's nice to have the home weekend, and I saw the results. Went fourth, and fifth, which on that grid, as we mentioned, with guys. I mean, I've actually got the list here. It was like Norris, Herta, Dan Tickton, Toby Sari, who's gone on to do like
Yeah,
GTs and has done IndyCar, and Jess Hawkins was on there for a while. Ricky
yeah,
Collard and Jack Butel were on there, who have gone on to. So to get, you know, in the top five,
yeah,
get in the top 10, as you say, was impressive. So fourth, and fifth at home was terrific. I did see that you took a podium at Rockingham. I always like asking about Rockingham because
yeah,
it splits opinion. I had Tim
yeah,
Harvey on last 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, and he said he absolutely hated it. Yeah, I had Jason Plato on, and he said he loved it. I was just wondering what kind of you thought of Rockingham.
Yeah, it was definitely a different track to what we're used to in the UK with the kind of banking element. So yeah, it was almost like set up to be a kind of British NASCAR circuit, but ended up mostly being used for road racing in the end rather than oval racing. So yeah, I think it always lended itself to quite good racing, I would say, because you had the big banking and the long straight, and it was so wide down into turn two that you could like go 4 or 5 cars wide if you wanted to, but then it tightened up very quick in the middle of the corner. So I think for touring cars, action wise, it was pretty ideal. And yeah, I seemed to go quite well there, to be honest. In that first season, we did a bit of testing there pre-season as well. So yeah, I got on quite well with the track, and yeah, like I say, lent itself to good racing. And I remember having some good battles there. So yeah, shame that it's not kind of still on the go now, because it's never, you know, it's always nice to go back and visit these tracks again. But yeah, not too sure what they're doing with it now. But yeah, we don't race there anymore.
Yeah, I think the last I heard it was being used for it's like essentially not a car park, but it's being held,
Storage kind of thing.
storage
Yeah.
for cars and stuff. So who knows? Maybe someone can put some money in and like resurrect it. Maybe there'd be a lot of fans would be happy to see it back, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. I remember my dad loving watching there because it was like going back to karting days where you could stand on the highest point of the grandstand and see the whole track, because it was a bit like Daytona. It's in a bowl. So yeah, that was also good for fans. You could see a lot of the action.
Yeah, which is what the fans always like. Oh, hang on, my backdrop's falling down. I must admit, sorry, that was getting a little bit warm on my back there. Sorry, I have to take it down. I'm glad you mentioned Daytona. We'll come to Daytona just a little later. But that season, so you took 7th overall, which again, with the company you were keeping, was was mighty impressive. Were you looking down the single seater like route at that point? Were you thinking, so you were in F4, were you thinking F3 or and then up? Was
Yeah.
was that the plan at the time?
Yeah, I think in those sort of last couple of years of karting and the first year in single seaters, it was very much the typical young driver, you know, focusing on trying to go up the Formula One ladder. And yeah, that was definitely the case for me and pretty much everyone on that grid at the time, I would say. So yeah, that was definitely what I was looking at. And it wasn't till kind of the end of the year when that outlook potentially changed in terms of yeah, just being speaking to other people. And I spoke a lot to Johnny Adam, who's obviously had a fantastic career and still does in GT racing, and is a Aston Martin factory driver. So yeah, he you know, approached me and my dad and kind of showed us the what's involved in GT racing, which I didn't really know it was so big at that point. Obviously, I was a big touring car fan and you know, single seaters and Formula One. So yeah, to see this motorsport with so many manufacturers involved and that kind of thing was quite eye opening. And yeah, that kind of led on to what was next, really.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I don't like bringing the subject up, but it is the biggest talking point in motorsport, and that's budget and backing and finance, and then however you want to dress it up, it's money, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
I guess the single seater route. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people on here who went down the single seater route for a little while and then switched because it was just very, very expensive. If you don't mind me
mhm.
asking, was that a conversation that you guys had with
Yeah,
regards to
definitely. I
how to
think,
progress?
like you say, it's at some point in a driver's career, you've got to have those kind of conversations. And I think it was yeah, just trying to go up that ladder, like you say, is extremely difficult. It's all very competitive, but also in terms of sponsorship and backing and that kind of thing, it can be really difficult. So yeah, I had some amazing partners since the karting days, single seater days, which some are still with me now, and you know, big loyal supporters and sponsors. But yeah, going up that single seater ladder is a bit of another another step, really. And it would, you know, we could see ourselves doing another year potentially, but then where do you go from that becomes difficult, and going up to Formula 3 and those kind of things. So yeah, I think it was the right it was definitely the right move. It wasn't an easy decision at the time because, being 15, 16 and feeling like you could be an F1 driver, and then
Still got that
you're
dream.
you're pretty much saying bye to it at that time. I know a lot of people say that you could switch back, and we've seen people like Paul di Resta go from DTM to F1 after a bit of single seaters in there as well. So, but it did kind of feel like you were kind of saying bye to that F1 dream, but it was definitely the right move. And very quickly I realized that, and focused on GTs, and there was a lot more opportunity to make a career out of that.
Yeah, great. I mean, I was just thinking of the timeline involved here. I mean, this is what, 15, 16 months, maybe a bit more after your last kart race.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're in a McLaren 570S GT4 absolute beast with
Yeah.
Ecuria Cos, a hugely missed team.
Yeah.
I asked about the karting to the single seater thing. This has got to be the big one, going from single seaters to driving a McLaren. I mean,
Yeah.
firstly, how did it come about, and what did you think of the car when you first got in it?
Yeah, I thought it was crazy fast on the straight because they've gone from 160 horsepower or so in the Formula 4 car to what, I think they were restricted a little bit to racing GT4, but probably around 500 horsepower. So 4 to 500. So yeah, it was a big
Wow.
step in terms of power, but also a lot heavier. So yeah, that was definitely the bigger change, I would say, was definitely a big change going into GT4. But I remember it being quite surprisingly smooth in terms of the GT cars immediately seemed to suit my driving style. There was a couple of technical things, if I want to be technical about it, in my driving style, like the way that I hold on to the brakes, which didn't actually do me any favors in single seaters, but helped me with the heavier cars in GT racing. So small things like that kind of helped me, to be honest. And yeah, took to GT4 quite quickly, and it was fantastic doing it in the Scottish team of Ecuria Cos and Scottish teammate as well, and sponsors. So yeah, we had a great time and got a couple of wins developing that car throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess going into a new series, especially one with so many cars in it. I mean, I did have a quick count up, as you probably saw in the notes I put across. There were, in the GT4 class in the British GT Championship, there were 28 teams and 52 cars. Obviously, one was your car, one was your one was like the team car. I guess at that point you must be thinking maybe not setting any targets, but just thinking let's see how we can get on here and have a bit of learning and see if we can be competitive.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, did you expect to be as competitive as you were straight off the bat almost?
I was hoping to be. We did a couple of tests at the end of the year, and it was very close to being in a different manufacturer car, but it didn't quite come together. And then, yeah, ended up in the McLaren. So I kind of knew that I enjoyed the GT cars and had good speed compared to other drivers. But equally, we were that year. It was the first year of McLaren. So although the team was branded up as a Ecuria Cos, it was run by Garage 59, which was McLaren GT at the
Okay.
time. And so we were effectively developing that 570S as the only car racing in the world that year. So yeah, that was quite daunting because at the
Didn't know
start of
that.
the year we were pretty much told that we can't crash because we don't have any enough spare parts to
Right.
get back on the track. So yeah, trying to tell a 16-year-old that's trying to prove themselves in a race car, that is not easy. But
Wow,
yeah, so
that's a juggling act, isn't it?
definitely. So yeah, there was a lot of things like that, and developing the car. We were doing a few tests out in Paul Ricard to get some good weather testing as well, to help develop the car and reliability wise as well as performance. So yeah, there was a lot going on that year as well, which was actually really good, and I think has again done me well when I look back now, because at a young age I was already involved in not just trying to go fast, but also thinking about how the car works and what makes the car not only quick, but good for other drivers to use and reliable, and all those kind of things. So yeah, that was a steep learning curve, but yeah, it was a difficult, challenging year because, like I say, we were developing the car, and that normally doesn't go completely smoothly. So there was a few races that we didn't finish. We ran out of fuel, I think, in Spa, or had some sort of fuel pump error while leading the race. And then I think the last two races of the year we won, which was, yeah, kind of showed the progression throughout the year, which was fantastic.
Yeah, I got that. Was it Snetterton and was it Donington? I think, wasn't it, with
Yeah,
the two wins? I'm going to come to Snetterton later on because you seem to do well there.
yeah,
Um, but as you say, great to be in on the development side as well at such a young age, because that obviously normally comes a bit later on. So as you said,
mhm.
it was a great grounding. And the first round was at Brands Hatch. I mean, in at the deep end much. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a lively circuit, and then obviously Rockingham, and then Spa, which I think was like the third or fourth round, wasn't it? It was quite fairly early in the season.
yeah,
I always say this because I'm not a racer, but when you've come out of karts and then 18 months later you're racing around Spa in a McLaren, do you allow
yeah,
yourself at any moment to think, "Wow, this is ridiculous," or this is
yeah.
just very very cool"? Because I know I would be.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think did have those moments of like pinch yourself moments, and like I say, especially almost more when I was racing on some of the British tracks. I think just because they meant a lot more to me potentially because I'd watched them for so long, whether that's
Sure.
touring cars and things like that on the TV. And yeah, so I remember I used to keep like the wristbands that you'd get from signing on and things like that, which
Right.
yeah, like just to kind of keep a record of all the tracks that I'd been to. So yeah, little things like that were really cool. And then you go to Spa, which is obviously, world famous, and in a lot of people's eyes the best track in the world, out, or definitely one of them. So yeah, to be racing a McLaren around there at 16, I was very lucky, and yeah, very fortunate to, a lot of sponsors and family and everyone that, made us get there, and people, they know who they are. And yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant, great stuff. Love that. Yeah, the was it you came third overall in class in the season, which yeah, again, given the size of the GT4 class, you must have been again really really pleased with that. Must have been brilliant.
Yeah, it was British GT was interesting at that time because the GT4 class was quite a lot bigger than GT3,
Mm,
just the way that the championship was. And for a long time GT3 had been the bigger class, but GT4 had kind of taken over a bit, and it was almost looking like it might go exclusively GT4, which looking back now would have been a real shame because there's been the last few years of GT3 racing has been fantastic, and
yeah,
thankfully that's really grown again, which is great. But yeah, for those, 16, 17 kind of years, it was the GT4 grid was really big. And yeah, it was great to finish third after a difficult year, and those last couple of wins really, fueled put fuel on into us, and we were ready to go again for the next year.
yeah, fantastic. And obviously, as you mentioned, you came back the following year. It wasn't quite as strong like results wise. So obviously this was when it was rebadged again as the Garage 59 entry, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just the one win at Snetterton, and a few sort of, podiums and bits and pieces here and there. Do you know why it perhaps didn't quite match the previous year? I mean, or was it just the way it fell sometimes?
Yeah, I think it's funny how it's probably the one year that didn't really go to plan, as you would say, I suppose. And it's funny how your brain tends to not really you don't remember as much from that year, which is which
Sure.
is funny. But no, there was a couple of things towards the end of the year which didn't go our way, and I think it was just a few things. We had two or three DNFs, which in a tight championship really just make a big difference. I think in the last sort of three races, I don't think we finished the race potentially, or maybe three of the last four. So that makes a big difference. And there was a couple of a few young guys in the Ginettas which were really quick with Stuart Middleton and Will Tregartha, for example. And the Ginetta was massively different to the McLaren, which was made it interesting for the BOP, which is obviously another topic that gets drivers talking and moaning a lot. But no, it was tricky to manage because I think if I remember right, the main difference was that we had way more power, but we were quite a lot heavier than the little Ginetta. So I think we were about a second faster in sector 1 at Spa, but then at sector 2, which is all the twisted bit coming down the hill, we were over a second slower. So it shows like how different the cars were within the lap. And yeah, I think the Ginetta guys did a really good job, and we just made a few too many mistakes, and unfortunately didn't manage to improve on the third place finish from the year before.
Yeah, just one of those things that, you know, with the cars and circuit involved sometimes, isn't it? It's bit, yeah, kind of different cars suited to different tracks and parts of tracks. One thing I do want to do a quick sidestep to, especially in the with this chap's current situation. You stepped into the LMP3 Cup for a couple of a couple of races in the Ligier, the JS PS3. Excuse me. Fantastic little car to look at. What was it like to drive?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, coming out of GT4 for almost 2 years at that point, and then driving something with that level of downforce, and you know, the big slick tires on it was great. I really enjoyed it straight away, and took to it really quickly. It was actually, I just did the last round, and it was actually a competition, which doesn't come up very often. So we made the most of it. So basically, it was a competition put up by some sponsors, Sports Insured and United Autosports, which was the team that run it, and obviously a massive team within Prototype Racing. And yeah, so they put up this prize for a young driver, and you had to put in your CV and a sort of like application of why you think you deserve the prize and all of your racing history and that kind of thing. And then they got down to top 10. They picked 10 drivers from those applications. And thankfully, I was one of the 10 picked, which was fantastic. And then at that point, they said that it was down to a public vote as to who won. So if I remember right, it was over quite a little while, definitely more than a few weeks, maybe a couple months or so. Or it was quite an extended period of time. So at the start, it was the usual, you know, put it out on your social media, get people to vote for you, and all that kind of thing. And then I think we saw they put out kind of updates every now and again of like not how many people votes had, not how many votes people had, but the order of which, like who had the most votes, for example.
Okay.
So I could see we were kind of like fourth or fifth or something like that. So then we were like, right, we're gonna have to put a bit more effort in here. And yeah, me and my family and basically everyone we knew contacted everyone that they know, and just went through a whole kind of spider web of emails and connections, whether it was business, friends, whatever, and really, you know, local newspapers, local everything, and really like pushed it out majorly. And yeah, so big thanks to my family again and everyone who helped with that. So yeah, we made a real big effort. We also went to a couple of car shows, like one up near Aberdeen, and then the one in Glasgow. I can't remember the name of it now. It's escaped to my mind, but the big one up there anyway, that Coulthard normally has a lot to do with. So yeah, we stood there with a kind of banner and got people to vote online because it was an online vote. And then the last couple of days, I actually stood in my local Tesco with the same banner, and everyone that walked in, I'd asked them to vote, which was definitely not my idea, but
That's amazing.
my family said it would be a good idea, and we went along with it. But yeah, sometimes you've got to take those opportunities, because to have a fully funded drive and weekend in a car like that just doesn't happen, and I've not seen it happen again since, really. So yeah, we had to take that opportunity, and I think it helped me once which you'll probably come on to, but once the co-driver got announced as Sir Chris Hoy, that probably helped my case, because I think I was the only Scottish driver in the top 10 that got picked for the public vote. So yeah, I think that really helped my case, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fantastic. That's a brilliant effort. I love that. Every single vote counting. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned your co-driver, and up until a few weeks ago, we'd have all been saying his name with a huge smile on our face, because like Sir Chris Hoy. I mean, it's Sir Chris Hoy, isn't it? I mean, he's absolute legend and knight and gold medalist, multiple gold medalist. Before we go on, we do have to say that we all wish him well. We all know his situation now, and
Yeah.
awful situation to be in. Just need to really admire the way that he's approaching the situation that he's in. It's just a measure of who he is, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Amazing.
mean, like you say, amazing person, and it was great to be able to work with him so closely on that weekend because as a driver, whenever you're sharing a car with someone else, like that, you have to work together well quite quickly, especially when it was just a one-off race weekend like that. So yeah, to see his work ethic and just the way that he approached everything, even just all the small details, and whether that was towards his racing or whether that's towards being on a bike or even making a good coffee in the morning, everything had to be perfect. And yeah, it was a fantastic guy, and thankfully stayed in touch a little bit since then, and bump into each other every now and again at a racetrack, which is always nice. So yeah, I think he was already inspirational enough, but like you say, the way that he's approached his situation and with his book coming out and everything is yeah, even more inspirational. And yeah, I think it'll help a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the last line there, isn't it? It is going to help a lot of people, more with the mental side of it as well. I mean, I spoke with Sir Chris at Autosport, the Autosport show at the start of the year, and he was up for coming on here for a chat, but obviously he's
Good.
hugely in demand. So
Oh yeah.
I've not heard anything back, but it was nice to know that he was interested at least. But we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely amazing guy. We know what he can do on a bike. People may not even realise that he was a racer.
Yeah.
And a very, very good one. I mean, you said he was great to work with. Was he annoyingly quick in that as well?
Yeah, we had a good weekend. He was quick, and yeah, he's done a lot of racing prior to doing that race. He also raced at Le Mans as well, and I think that was there was a bit of a documentary made about that at the time of his kind of road to Le Mans, which was really cool to see. And yeah, he's always been a big car enthusiast, and raced quite a lot actually. And even he's raced quite a lot, I believe, in Caterhams and stuff, but doesn't really publicize it on social media and stuff, but just enjoys it and has fun. And which is fantastic to see, someone else coming from a different sport initially, but really enjoying motorsport and having fun, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So yeah, really cool to see, and to work with him. And we got the second place in the first race, I think it was, which was really good. And yeah, amazing experience.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, it is great that he goes racing, but he keeps it for himself, doesn't he? Really, he just sort of it's just his thing that he does for fun, rather than saying, "Look
Yeah,
at what
he's
I'm doing."
absolutely doing it, yeah, for himself and to enjoy it. And yeah, like I say, it's yeah, great to see. And yeah, he's always having fun, whether it's taking his road car on the track at a track day, or racing a LMP car. It's all good fun.
Yeah, great stuff. And just to sign off on that, we of course wish him all the very, very best for for the next few years. Right, okay. It was 2018. It's around this time that you stepped into Barwell. You joined Barwell Motorsport. I want to come to that in a moment. I did see a question, though, two questions actually, from Darren Morley. Evening, Darren. He said, firstly, is Lamborghini now being considered a major player in racing? I think it is. As before, they were considered as much more of a rich man's toy and not necessarily a competitive race car. I think that's a good point, isn't it? They kind of had that stigma. Not that it's a bad one, but in the racing
No.
world, it was perhaps attached to it to begin with.
Yeah, I guess the Murcielago GT1 potentially, and
Yeah,
the for initial Gallardos were probably not the most competitive, but
yeah,
one of the best sounding, and the most kind of had one of the most flair around them. And a couple of those cars I've seen on track again recently, and yeah, it's awesome to see those kind of generation of cars and the noise that they have, which is unfortunately slowly disappearing a little bit from the current generation of cars. So
yeah,
yeah, definitely probably a little bit different, but they've majorly stepped up their game, and growing and growing, and obviously competing in the World Endurance Championship, and
yeah,
competing well in British GT and also GT races around the world. I think they've won Daytona 2 or 3 years in a row, a few years ago in the GT class. So yeah, definitely a big operation nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely, and they've also been out in the DTM as well. I mean, I spoke with
Yeah, DTM champions this year.
spoke with Jack Aitken. He's been out driving in Lambos as well, which is yeah, it's great, and it's good to they're sort of maybe changing that kind of narrative. They're definitely changing that narrative from the rich man's toy to the to the racing car. One more thing that Darren did say, because I've always wondered, when you've been thumping around a racetrack at 150 miles an hour, when you leave and have to go on public roads, is it difficult to keep the speed limit?
It is actually. I think it's something I've noticed a few times because your brain's almost like gets used to driving at those speeds. So then when you've been, say driving, especially like a tight circuit like Ilton Park, for example, like the trees are really tight, the barriers are tight. So you almost feel like you're going faster than if you were at Silverstone, where the speed is actually higher, but it's much more open and expanded. So I guess the Nordschleife might be the same if you were to go there. So yeah, it's when you're going around all day doing that, and then you jump in your road car and you're just on the motorway, and it's really wide, and the trees are quite far away. Like you can find that you sit at 70 miles an hour and you feel like you're doing 40, just the way that your brain's just slowed everything down from being in the race car all day. And yeah, that is a little bit tricky, so I definitely have to keep an eye on it, because I don't want to get in trouble.
No, great stuff. I mean, that's a good thing. I think, as I said, I'm not a racer. I've done a couple of track days recently down at Thruxton in the single seater.
Brilliant.
And I drive a Vauxhall Insignia, which I mean, but the single seaters aren't that powerful. But as you say, you're low to the ground and you're thumping around, and it's, and then you're going up the slip road onto the A303 in a Vauxhall Insignia and a diesel, and you're thinking, oh no, can I go back? But no, that's great.
It's always a little bit disappointing putting your foot down coming out of the junction to leave the circuit, and you've not got the same engine behind you as you do in the race car, sound and performance. So yeah, but no, it's very lucky to do what we do. So it's all fun.
Great stuff. So we're on to Barwell Motorsport, Lamborghini. Obviously, a very well respected team, stepping up into GT3 in Huracan, which is a brilliant car, whichever way you look at it. Again, what was the gap like from GT4 to GT3? Because obviously that's something I'm not going to experience in my life.
No.
was it like another big leap for you?
Yeah, it was big. I mean, I think a lap time difference around most circuits is about 10 seconds or so, which is really big. And
Wow.
It's you've got more power, a lot more downforce, more grip from the bigger tires and all that kind of thing. So it was immediately a lot faster, and getting used, there's a surprising amount of downforce on a modern day GT3 car. The flat floors, the diffusers, the wings, the front splitter, they all create really a lot of downforce, and hence why it is becoming quite difficult to follow other cars in terms of dirty air and stuff like that. It's not just something for single seaters in Formula One. So to get used to all that, because GT4s have a little bit of downforce, but more just to help you out, rather than keep the car a bit more stable and a bit more stuck to the ground. Whereas the downforce levels on a GT3 are much higher, where you actually have to really use that to find lap time. And that definitely took a little bit of getting used to. I was lucky enough to have one or two goes very briefly in the McLaren GT3 car during the last year of GT4, and that definitely got me excited to try the Lamborghini. And the first time pulling out the pit lane and hearing the V10 behind you was really cool. And it was an amazing opportunity, and thankfully is still the car that I drive now.
Yeah, absolutely. Which we're going to come through, just touch on some of the main bits from the last few years. Just backtrack a tiny bit. Joining Barwell Motorsport, obviously they've been around and they've done it. They've been around for a while. How did the move come about, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah,
I'm always interested into how these things come
Yeah,
comes
it's funny.
first.
It's like so many small things along the way make the difference, don't they? And I think at the time, it helped that LMP3 race that I did with Chris, that was Sir Chris, that was spoken about, was obviously with United Autosports, which are a massive UK team based in Leeds, and
Yeah.
the team boss of that is obviously very well respected. And when an opportunity came to race with Barwell, they then kind of asked spoke to the United Autosports guys, or I said if they could help me and put in a good word. And yeah, so it's funny how all those things add up. And if we hadn't got that opportunity and won that competition, then maybe I wouldn't have got that drive. And yeah, funny looking back now how things have worked out. But yeah, the basic thing was that I got to know the guys at Black Bull Whiskey through a couple the 2 years in GT4, because they were a sponsor of the team, and they'd previously been a sponsor of Barwell and then decided to go back to being a sponsor of Barwell for 2018. And with me being a young sort of up and coming Scottish driver, they wanted to also help me out if they could. And it just so happened that Barwell had signed two Lamborghini Junior drivers as part of their Silver Cup lineup, but we're on the edge of signing one more. And I managed to get everything together, and with some amazing support from sponsors and Black Bull and Tunnux and these other sponsors, to be able to get everything together and go racing with Barwell alongside a couple of Lamborghini Junior drivers, which was great. So yeah, a fantastic step up, and it was definitely what we were looking to do. GT4 racing is fantastic, but there's not many professional seats in GT4 championships, or not as many. Whereas yeah, GT3 races in a lot more championships throughout the world, and it's the slightly bigger class. And yeah, that was definitely what I wanted to do.
Yeah, just kind of opens things up a bit, doesn't it? Being in GT3 makes that standing in Tesco with a banner all worth it, doesn't
All
it?
worth it, exactly.
There's extra little votes.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I do need to say this because, and I mean this absolutely seriously, an evening in with Tunnux and whiskey
Yeah.
is perfect. What an evening! Honestly, I'll be so happy. Though,
Yeah,
two
get
great,
a good couple of sponsors there, definitely.
absolutely top draw. Yeah, great stuff. So I mean that season. Uh, we'll touch on the European stuff, because you did some in the then like Blancpain
Yeah.
series and that Fanatec GT World Challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very cool to sort of race both at home and in the UK and things like that. But again, we want to come back to Spa, because it was your first experience of the 24 hours of Spa, which
Yeah.
obviously people think of 24-hour races, they automatically go Le Mans, they go
Yeah.
Daytona, they go maybe to the Nürburgring. Spa needs to get mentioned more, because it's
Yeah.
it's a fantastic circuit. It's an
Yeah.
amazing event. 24 hours around Spa.
Yeah.
I mean, was it your first taste of like real endurance racing?
Yeah, I'd done a little bit of endurance racing just as a one-off in a TCR car at Silverstone earlier in the year, just as
Yes,
a
that was
bit of
Accelerate, wasn't it?
practice.
You were.
Yeah, as a bit of practice to get used to 24-hour racing in the dark, having to just manage yourself and all that kind of stuff. So that was a good experience to get used to that. And then yeah, into Spa 24 hours, which was it's a crazy race. I mean, that championship in general, which it's basically the European GT3 Championship, but it was sponsored by Blancpain then, and is now Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe. So always fancy names, but gets a bit confusing for the fans. But yeah, effectively European GT3 Championship. And most of the races you get upwards of 50 cars anyway, and then at Spa it's normally upwards of 70. So, and they're all GT3 cars, and the classes are done within the driver gradings. So a little bit like what we have in British GT, where you have Silver Am and Pro Am, or Silver and Pro Am. Similar, where in Europe the main classes are Pro, which is all professional drivers in one car with three drivers, and then Silver, which tends to be the young kind of up and coming drivers, and then Pro Am, which is a mix of both. amateur and pro. So yeah, we were in the silver class, and yeah, Spa's one of those races where you can never switch off. Every safety car makes the race completely crazy again because you're all bunched up with 70, 75 cars or so nose to tail, and you don't get many blue flags because the race can be pretty bunched up. You could be behind amateur drivers, you could have professional drivers behind you wanting to get past. So yeah, there's a real mix, and it's basically just an absolute fight all the way through, and is definitely my favorite race to compete in at the moment.
Yeah, fantastic. Uh, Obviously, you're driven around Spa during the daytime,
Yeah,
which I'm not saying is easy. I don't mean it to come across as that because I know it's not.
no,
But I've spoken to a lot of people who have done racing at night in these endurance races. You know, even guys, you know, from like Tom Coronel, who's done it on the Nordschleife, and Max Goetz has done it everywhere, and even going back to like Steve Soper and Stefan Johansson and David Bradman, all these guys,
yeah,
they've all said um, the biggest issue with racing at night is glare,
yeah,
and especially for you in the GT3 guy, the much slower GT4 cars who
yeah,
they say, you know, they sometimes come out of the dark so quickly at you. I
yeah.
mean, were those two issues the ones that you found the most kind of troublesome, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. And then also at Spa, the weather plays a massive part. So it's hard enough when it's raining during the day, but when it's raining at night, the hard part's when it's like the really hard part is when it's like in between, because if it's, if it's rained but it's drying out and it's daytime, you can kind of see where the dry bits of the track are, where you need to be driving, and maybe how long until you need to be on the slick tires again. Excuse me. Whereas yeah, trying to manage all that while it's at night and trying to just peer over just in front of the car where the lights are the brightest to try and see like how the track's evolving, and kind of feel it through the car a bit more, and the way that the tires are is super difficult. So yeah, it's amazing how you've got all these things going on, but naturally once you've gained a bit of experience, your instincts kind of take over, and you just kind of go into more of a flow state. And I quite like driving at night because I think it's almost easier to tap into that like flow state, which is quite a popular phrase within kind of motorsport and sports psychology in general. But yeah, where you're kind of not really having to think as hard, and you just kind of keep it going. And yeah, it's amazing how at that point you just kind of settle into it. And yeah, but it's one of those where I think at night, if you're having a good race, it goes really well because you can feel like you're just charging through the pack and you're overtaking everyone, and it's great.
Yeah,
But if you're struggling, or you've got a slight issue, or you're managing something, then that's when the glare comes into it, where it's much harder to see how close the cars are behind you because their lights are so bright. And racing drivers aren't as polite as people on the road where they dip your beams if they're nice and close behind you. So you're just getting blinded all the time by the bright lights. And yeah, that's hard to manage and hard to know exactly if people are going for moves or not. So yeah, it's a huge challenge, but that's what makes it so unique and so special when you do well, because just making it to the end is a big achievement in itself, and making it to the end on the podium or winning the race is yeah, doesn't get any better.
yeah. Feels like you've earned it that extra bit more with all the stuff you have to go through in the night.
Definitely.
Another good question here from Darren Morley. I have seen the other questions, chaps. I'll come to those as well. But you said this is always a good one. Do you prefer racing the sunset stint or the sunrise stint, if there is one at Sparks? It's normally raining.
Yeah,
But because again, I've spoken to people on here, older guys like Mike Wilds, who's done Le Mans, and
yeah,
like Steve Soper, and even Tim Harvey last week. They said that they enjoyed the sunrise coming up. But
yeah,
I think it was partly because they could smell the bacon from the fans.
yeah, yeah.
Um, sorry, guys. But I mean, did you have a preference? Did you kind of think, oh, it's going to be getting darker, that sun's going to go down, or is it here comes the daylight? Thank God.
Yeah, I think the morning one's definitely the one that most drivers probably prefer. Taking it into the night is also cool, but having that low sun in your eyes for half an hour or so is quite a challenge. And you have to manage that a little bit with your visor choice, and maybe sticking bits of tape on your visor to use it as a block for the sun and things like that. But yeah, I think that stint bringing it into the next day is always a really nice one, because it almost feels like you can see the end, whereas during the night it feels like a long night sometimes, especially if the weather's not on your side, or you're struggling a little bit with the car and things like that. So yeah, when you're getting into the next day, although there's often still a long way to go, because normally, if I'm right, Spa normally starts sort of like late afternoon, about 4:30.
Yeah.
So if it's getting light at 5, 6 in the morning, you've still got nearly half the race to go. So it's
Right. Yeah.
a long way to go, but you feel like you're getting somewhere. And it's at that point people often say, like, survive the night and then really push on from there, and you're then in a battle to the end. And yeah, it's often when the track's quite fast as well, because it's still nice and cold, but your visibility is a little bit better. The track's well rubbered in, so you can go and try and nab a fastest lap if you can as well.
Okay. Yeah, nice one. I love that. I love these little driver insights into little nuances about the race.
Yeah.
It's always great to hear. That first attempt at 24 hours Spa went rather well. You ended up on the podium.
Yeah.
In the silver class. And I know you've done it since, but that first podium at Spa it must feel great, especially after 24 hours of all the
Yeah.
stuff that you just described, to be on the podium at one of the most famous racetracks in the world. And at that point, you were 18 years old. It must have been pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It was a tiny bit bittersweet standing on the podium, because with 23 minutes to go or so, my teammate who was doing the final stint had a look up the inside of the other car, and that was for the lead of the race in class. So they were basically battling nose to tail for the last hour or so.
Wow.
So yeah, he was a little bit disappointed in himself that he hadn't been able to get a move on the car in front, because we were probably slightly quicker, but difficult to overtake. So yeah, slightly bittersweet, but I mean, amazing time, and an amazing race. And we finished quite high up in the overall pack as well. And yeah, it's kind of I think Spa's gone so well the first few years. That year having second place and then winning it the following year.
Yeah.
And 2020, I think it gave me a bit of an unrealistic view on what 24-hour races are, because I was just trying to win or get on the podium every time, whereas the last three or four 24-hour races haven't gone quite so well. But yeah, we were on a real roll at Spa 24-hour for the first 4 years. We were on the podium every time, and yeah, it was very important in my career as well. It's with the people that are in the know, really deem Spa as one of the biggest races of the year in motorsports in general, and to be consistently performing well at those races in all sorts of conditions. And yeah, that I think that really solidified me as a good GT driver, and helped my case in terms of becoming a professional driver.
Yeah. And I think, being able to say that you went 4 for 4 on the podium on your first 4
Yeah.
attempts at Spa, there can't be too many people that can say that. And that's
No.
obviously hugely impressive, and obviously something that you can kind of lean on as well.
Yeah. No, it
Especially
was
at
great,
that,
and
at
doing
that
it
point.
in different classes. We were in the silver class for the first couple of years, and then the pro-am class for the next 2 years after that. So yeah, it's a special race, and definitely want to get back on that podium the next year if we're there again.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's hope you are. It'd be great. It'd be great to see you up there again. Just quick side step before we come back to like the British GT and everything, and we'll touch on Daytona before we finish up. 2019, you spent with Wayne Taylor Racing. Now, I'm old enough to remember watching Wayne Taylor
Yeah.
in the late 80s. I remember he drove. I remember him putting it in the gravel in a car called a Cougar or something in the late 80s. I remember him seeing Wayne Taylor doing that. You were in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, which is North America, wasn't it? I believe.
Yeah.
With Wayne Taylor Racing, a huge outfit, as people will know. That must have been a cool experience, obviously being with Lamborghini still in a car that you relatively know, and with such a well-respected team.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the most enjoyable years that I've had in motorsport. Definitely, it was a really cool experience going over and racing at all these American tracks, and having raced the likes of Laguna Seca and Daytona on Gran Turismo since I was a kid, to then actually be there was really special. And yeah, it's a great championship, the Super Trofeo Championship, one make series, and they have a world final at the end of the year as well, which was good. So yeah, racing around America with my good Italian friend Andrea Amici, who kept in touch with and remained very good friends since. And yeah, great experience to European young guys going over and racing over there, and we had a few wins, and we're kind of one breakdown away from winning the championship as the car spluttered to the grid on the last race of the year, when we were starting on pole, knowing that if we win the race, we'd win the championship. So that was a bit of a shame, but no, fantastic year, and look back on it very, very fondly.
Yeah, terrific. It must be a terrific experience, as you say, for like two young European lads out racing in America. That sounds
Yeah.
very good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, just the whole I like racing in America in general, Daytona and these kind of races, but I think the fans out there really get involved, and the Americans really know how to put on a show, whether that's motorsport, or American football, or whatever it is. So yeah, they really draw good crowds in. The atmosphere is good. Getting to drive into victory lane and all that kind of stuff. It was like, felt like you're in a movie sometimes, and yeah, it was really cool, and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I saw you took a win at Road America, which is a circuit I'd love to get to. It just looks fantastic. It looks very cool. Go through the kink there. It looks great
Yeah,
fun.
and I think I took to the American circuits quite quickly because they're probably much more similar to British circuits than they are to European circuits, in
Right.
the sense that they tend to be more old school, with the exception of COTA, which was built more recently. But yeah, a lot of the others are very much still old school, where you've got small exit curbs or no exit curbs, and grass very close to the track, with barriers not far beyond the grass. So yeah, you really had to have your wits about you, and quite a few of the races we didn't manage to test at before the race weekend. So doing all the preparation beforehand on the simulators and these kind of things was really important, and yeah, getting up to speed quick. So all those kind of things just made it a really fun, challenging, but enjoyable year, and we were competitive throughout, fighting in the top three, which is always fun. So yeah, but I really like the tracks out there, and yeah, it brings up another debate about track limits and all like those kind of stuff. But I think
Yeah,
in America you don't have to discuss that so much, because if you're going off the track, you're probably going to have a crash. So it makes it a bit easier.
that's what I've been saying
Well,
for the
harder for the
longest.
driver, but easier in terms of track limits.
Yes, he's in terms of the rule enforcement. I've been saying that for ages, but as I said, I'm old. But anyway,
Yeah.
uh, just quickly, I say about racing in America. I urge anyone, if they're ever out in America, go to watch a sporting event, particularly a
Yeah.
motorsport event. I've been to the Indy 500, which was fantastic, and I've been to a basketball match and a baseball game, and it's just brilliant. They just do it right out there. So if you get the
Yeah.
chance to go to America, folks, get out there if you can. Go and watch some racing. It's a great atmosphere for the fans, and I'm sure, as Sandy just said, the drivers as well,
Absolutely.
which is fantastic. Which brings us on to 2020. Obviously, a very difficult year initially for everyone with COVID, and a lot of people very sadly didn't come out the other side of it. And so we can all be very grateful that we're still here. From the racing point of view, you were lined up, and as it was, that's how you raced that year with Barwell Motorsport in the GT3, British GT. I love British GT. I'm a huge fan. Was there any danger that the drive was in jeopardy, or had it all been done and it was all settled and sealed? Because I've spoken to again a few drivers, and they've said,
Yeah.
some people said I didn't even know I was going to have a drive. Some people said it was no problem; it was all sorted. What was the situation for you?
Yeah, it was weird for everyone. Obviously, everyone kind of stopping what they would normally do in their daily lives, and for us, that was included motorsport. So yeah, for quite a few months, it was very unknown. I think everyone, hoped that things would go back to normal, which they kind of did quicker within sport than within other things in life. So that was helpful. But yeah, it kind of opened up other opportunities to, in terms of, that was when I made my simulator at home, which I still use a lot now. and yeah, got into the more of the online racing scene. And yeah, in fact, there was one or two other things actually that maybe going to be racing back in America and stuff, but that didn't happen because of COVID. But then British
Right.
GT was a great drive, and thankfully that's what we ended up doing and managing to put that together.
Yeah. Which yeah, and obviously glad that it all came to pass, and eventually we all got racing. I'll come on to your teammate in a second because there was a question about him there. Very quickly, going back to the circuit though, without fans, again, a lot of people have just said, and every single driver has said that they hated it. I mean, I spoke with Takuma Sato at the start of the year, and he said,
Yeah.
I won the Indy 500, and there was no one there.
Oh, yeah, that is
And
a
I thought,
shame.
I can't think of anything more bittersweet in the world
Oh,
than that as a racer. But it must have been very weird.
yeah, it was strange. I mean, we were kind of lucky with British GT, if I remember right now, that we did have fans at quite a few races
Towards
because
the end, wasn't
the
it?
regulations were different for us. I can't remember the reason, but anyway, they were different from us compared to touring cars. And I think it actually ended up being quite good for British GT because quite a lot of touring car fans ended up coming to the British GT races because they couldn't go to touring cars. Yeah, so there you go. So I remember being at Ilton, and there was a lot of people saying, you know, that they were going to go to touring cars, but they weren't able to because it was all decided quite last minute. So yeah, it was actually quite a good season for British GT in terms of growth potential, probably. And we weren't allowed fans at the last round, which was a bit of a shame because it was at Silverstone, so it was under different regulations, and we ended up winning the championship. So and not all of my family and stuff could come because only team members and things could go. So that was a little bit of a shame, but yeah, thankfully they were at a few of the other rounds, and yeah, it felt a little bit more back to normal, which was nice.
Yeah, lovely, lovely, good. You mentioned your teammate, Rob Collard, local lad to me. Rob and Ricky, you've raced with both of them.
Yeah.
We don't perhaps like them so much just this year, right now. Joking, of course. Rob, obviously hugely experienced, just in the world, you know, business and racing and everything. Question from where are we? Diffan Evans. Hello, Diffan. Good to see you. He said, how did you find working with Rob Collard, and did you learn much from him racing wise?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I think obviously his racecraft and all those kind of things, you know, watched him for a long time in touring cars, like a lot of us will have. And yeah, fantastic racer. That was kind of what he was known for. And yeah, it was a great working with him again, very professional approach and all those kind of things. And yeah, we worked really well together. And he was also learning in terms of driving a GT3 car. So I think we could learn a bit from each other because the technique was quite different from jumping out the touring car and into the GT3. So no, it was a great year. We definitely worked together well, and you know I was racing with him in the European sprint races this year as well as a pairing in Pro Am. So yeah, we definitely make a good team. We've had a lot of podiums and wins together, whether it was this year or 2020 and a little bit in between. So no, it's he's a good guy, and yeah, become good friends as well as teammates, even when we're on the other not in the same car.
Yes, we'll come to the different side of the garage very shortly because I'm aware at the time. But yeah, we'll come to the this year particularly. But one thing I remember though was that year. I think a lot of the touring car groups were posting about it.
Hmm.
Was your win at Brands Hatch? I think it was your first one of the season, I believe. You got ahead of was it Jenson Button's McLaren lot and Ian Loggy and Yelmer Berman and stuff at the start of the race. I just remember that was the one that sticks out in my mind as being a really, firstly, just an enjoyable race to watch. But obviously, you guys won it. The first win of
Yeah.
the season. That must have been good.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we
Right.
were the goal that year was to definitely win the championship, and yeah, obviously that was the first win of the year, which was
Mm.
really put us into that kind of championship contention because we had a good first round, and then I think must have had one tricky round, and then we had a good Brands Hatch. So yeah, it was. great, put us in the battle, and yeah, our eyes were firmly set on trying to secure the championship, and it was a tough fight all the way to the end, really.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that there was I think a podium, Snetterton, and I think you and the Loggy car. I think it was nip and tuck, wasn't it? Right getting into Silverstone, you were just behind in points, if I remember correctly, going into Silverstone. I mean, when it's out of your hands and you're chasing your first British GT championship, you just had your first British GT3 win.
Yeah.
That year, you're going for the championship. Is it hard to just keep the mindset of let's focus on what we can control? Because you must be thinking, there must be a part of your brain thinking, what are they doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was quite a nice position to be in actually going into the last round, because we were, I think you're right in saying we were behind on points, but we didn't have a success penalty.
Yes, and they did, didn't they?
So because of that, you kind of can just go into the weekend knowing that if you win the race, you're probably gonna win the championship. So that was definitely the mindset, and remarkably, we stuck it on pole and won the race, and the rest is history, as they say. So yeah, it was really good. I remember feeling good going into the weekend. Silverstone's a track that I've done well at. In general, I really enjoy driving there, and I've had some of my best qualifying performances and things like that there. So it's definitely somewhere that we felt confident, and yeah, being able to secure the championship was huge. And yeah, there was definitely a lot of pressure on, because I also knew in terms of my career that it was very important to secure that championship in terms of becoming a professional driver. And, that along with doing well at Spa and in the European races, as well as winning the British GT Championship, all kind of came together to then, be stepped up from a Lamborghini Junior driver to a Lamborghini factory driver, which is, yeah, pretty much the main turning point in my career, really.
Yeah. I'll come to that very short. That again, just to touch on that final race there, because obviously they had the time penalty. It was Sam Dehaan, wasn't it, and Patrick Ayala.
Yeah.
They were running, and you knew they had the penalty, but obviously there's still that thing in your mind of thinking, I've got to keep going. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess your team were telling you with pit boards and radio, whatever, what was going on,
Yeah.
and was it a case of just keep going?
Yes, it was. And Silverstone 500 is always a difficult one, because it's 3 hour race, which tends to be the only 3 hour race in British GT, although we've done some others since then. But I'm pretty sure that year it was the only one. And the strategy is completely different just for that race compared to your normal British GT races, because rather than basically doing half the race, changing driver, and then doing the next half of the race like you do in a 1 hour or 2 hour, in the 3 hour race, you have to do 4 stints, which means 3 mandatory pit stops, which can basically be taken at any point throughout the race, because the fuel wise, you have enough fuel in the car to only do 2 pit stops, but you have to do 3 in the regulations. So it's always a difficult race, because the strategy can change everything dramatically at the last minute. And until you've done that last pit stop, you can't be calm, because a full course yellow or safety car at the right or the wrong time for you can just completely change the race. And it's gone for us and against us in previous years as well. I remember last year with Sean Balfe, we were struggling at the start of the year. And we were kind of running around sort of 8th to 10th, and then the safety car came bang on the right time, and we came out of it cycled through into the lead, and ended up finishing second. So yeah, it goes your way some years, and this year it didn't, for example, and that's just the way it is. So it was quite a nervy last race, because like I say, until all those pit stops are done, you don't fully know where really in the race you are, and everyone tends to be on different strategies. So yeah, once we done that final pit stop and I was in the car to the end, then I knew I could just get my head down and focus.
Yeah, it was a slightly more, I won't say relaxed, but slightly more relaxed, I guess, knowing that the major jeopardy section had gone from the race. So,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
obviously crossing the line, British GT champion.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what it's all about, isn't it? For that year,
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's no, there's so much work that goes on, whether it's from me or the team, all the mechanics staying, late at night and prepping the cars. And yeah, the Barwell guys work so hard, because, especially this year, having such a full program in Europe doing sprint and endurance, and then doing British GT as well. It's a lot of races, and there's quite a lot of back-to-back weekends in there in the middle of the summer. So the cars get back to the workshop on the truck maybe on a Tuesday, and they've got to be prepped again to go out on a Thursday. It's a lot of work and a lot of hours. So yeah, the whole team deserve that, and it was great to bring back the championship. And I think, if I'm right in thinking, Barwell had come second quite a lot of years, just in the lead up to 2020. So yeah, it was cool to get that championship.
Yeah, get it over the line for everyone, not just yourselves, of course, which is
Mhm.
fantastic. So yeah, 2021 obviously started. The world started to get a bit more back to normal, but it also was when you signed as a Lamborghini factory driver.
Yeah.
Now, I've spoken with like Max Gertz and Adam Christodoulou, who have been Mercedes drivers in the past or in the present, and Johnny Molam at Lotus. I'm actually catching up with Johnny tomorrow, which would be nice.
Great.
And they've said that becoming a factory driver was like one of their like proudest moments, one of the greatest achievements. I mean, I guess at the age of what you were, 20, 21 at the time,
Yeah.
to be I mean, how did it all come together that you were basically offered or given the opportunity to be a Lamborghini factory driver? Because you must have been ecstatic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a cool brand to be involved in as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those that, if people within motorsport know that BMW or Mercedes or things like this are potentially bigger players in terms of motorsport and their history and things like that. But in terms of the average person on the street being able to say that you're a Lamborghini driver is
Like,
a very very cool. And yeah, felt amazing, and it was a long process. But since moving into GT3, I was on the Lamborghini Junior Driver program, and which is something that they have in place now as well. And yeah, that included doing a couple of kind of shootout style tests at the end of the year with some of the other junior drivers, where you all drive the same car, just at different points throughout the day, and you all have a sort of 2 5-lap runs and then a qualifying run on new tires and things like that. So yeah, quite high pressure environments, but those tests were really important in proving what you can do, as well as what you were racing in throughout the year. So yeah, I was on the kind of junior program for the 2.5 seasons or so, and all that was kind of leading towards sometimes one person from the junior academy kind of gets picked for the following year if the opportunity is there, and thankfully I'd done enough to have my name as the one that would be picked from the selection pretty much.
wow. Wow, that's got to be cool.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of that moment when you find out. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a great moment, and also, for my family and everyone, family, friends, sponsors, like I've said before, who have put in so much effort for me to be able to go racing and be there in the first place. And yeah, I was very fortunate growing up that we were able to do that, and yeah, for that to then now be from that moment on kind of call it my job rather than just trying to make it my job was yeah, obviously the biggest change really. And yeah, that got to try and keep it going now, because there's plenty of fast young drivers who are always coming through, and yeah, got to try and keep the pace up.
Yeah, for sure. Just to put into context the like gravitas that Lamborghini has. My 6-year-old daughter, I was talking about getting a new car in the new year, and she said, "Are you going to get a Lamborghini?" And I
Great.
went, "1, no.
Yeah.
2, how do you know what a Lamborghini is?" And she was like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really cool car, isn't it?" And so it's
Yeah.
the first car that she even knew.
Great.
So
Great.
yeah, so that's that's where
Yeah, I
Lamborghini
think
is.
it's an interesting brand, like the question earlier about it, the way it's changed within motorsport. I think the way that it's changed within motorsport has also helped the brand change on the road as well. It's not just it's not just a difficult, loud car to drive kind of thing. It's they're great cars, and also, like you say, the brand's super strong now, and just about everyone knows the Lamborghinis, and if you think of a cool sports car, it's definitely one of the first names that comes to mind. So yeah, it's great to see, and hopefully that means even more racing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We'd love to see more Lamborghinis out there on track. Just to sort of skip forward a little bit. The next couple of years were obviously you won the championship in 2020, 2021, 22, 23. It was kind of nearly years. They felt like they were close to being very, very successful, but not quite.
Yeah.
Again, that's just sometimes how it goes, isn't it? Everyone can do the right prep and do everything, but it doesn't quite fall into place on race day. You said about like VIP, or with like yellow flags or wherever it might be, or with success penalties at different times and things like that. It just sometimes doesn't fall right, does it?
Yeah, it's just the way it goes, and motorsport, like a lot of other sports, at the end of the day, there's a lot more people going home unhappy than there is going happy potentially in terms of a sporting contest. So yeah, there's only one winner, and I think within the sort of 2 or 3 years. First years as a factory driver, I think we came second and third or so in the British GT Championship, racing with Adam, and yeah, so we had some amazing races, plenty of race wins and things like that, but just didn't quite manage to grab that extra championship, which would have been nice. And but yeah, still a lot of fantastic races. We got on the podium again in 2021 at Spa 24 Hours with a different crew, a different bunch of drivers. So yeah, it was still lots of race wins and fantastic opportunities racing at Daytona for the first time, for example. So, but yeah, still searching for that next championship, which is ongoing at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not far away. We touched on Daytona. Got to talk about it. It's on my bucket list. It's the next thing I want to do on the bucket list, whether it's the 24 hours or a bit of NASCAR.
Yeah.
Which happens to fall in February half term, and my wife's a teacher. Convenient.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
How very convenient. Try and work that one in.
Yeah.
Daytona, it's famous for the banking, but the infield section's tricky as well. It's just got something about the place, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And you made your debut there, 2022, 24 Hours of Daytona. Again, it must have been so exciting going out there.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's a long event as well because we have the Roar before the 24, as it's called,
Yes.
1 week before the race. So you end up being out there for a good couple of weeks or so. And this year it was only a little bit longer because I went over to the race team's factory and did a seat fitting and met all my teammates and that kind of thing. So yeah, it takes up a lot of your January, and it's a time of year where normally there's not much racing going on. So it feels like the whole racing world is kind of evolving around Daytona because it's pretty much the only race on, or certainly the only race in kind of Europe and America at that time of year. So you often see a lot of IndyCar drivers doing that race, sometimes NASCAR drivers and different, sometimes even XF1 guys who step into the prototype cars or GT cars and race. So yeah, you really feel like you're the kind of the main race that's going on at that time of year, and it's got that feel about it, and it feels like a big event when you're there. Loads of fans, and yeah, it's awesome to see. Just like being in a movie again, like I said earlier, when all the American style where all the crews kind of line up in front of your own car, and they've got the flyover and the national anthem and all those kind of things. It's really goosebumps moments, which is really, really fun.
Yeah, and obviously a fantastic circuit to drive on as well. Famous for the banking, which people think is difficult, but I've heard from a lot of drivers it's actually quite easy if you just put your boot on it. And
yeah,
it
the
kind of sticks
banking's
to
the
the
easy
track.
bit because you've got all the grip in the world, and it's just gets a bit tricky when you're going three wide because although it's reasonably big, when you're three wide with prototype cars going quite a lot faster than you, it gets pretty narrow. And yeah, one cool thing about Daytona is having the spotter, which is quite a unique thing to Daytona, where because you can see the whole track, you can have a spotter, which is basically someone on the radio talking to you while you're going around the lap and telling you if there's cars coming up or overtaking you. And that's also quite very useful at nighttime when you've got the prototype cars coming through and the different multi-class racing there.
Yeah, it's just a cool dynamic about the race, and obviously like you've been there twice as well. I guess a place you'd like to go back to, do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. We're hopefully I'll be there in January again, and waiting on that news coming through hopefully at some point soon.
Oh, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. That's how we want to spend a January.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, just very quickly, want to come back to British GT for this year. I know it didn't end the way you wanted to, but I mean, it was pretty clear early on in the season that you and Alex, and obviously the Collards, were, you know, you were the guys to beat. The Barwell Lamborghini was not head and shoulders above the rest, but it was very, very, very good.
Yeah.
During a season when it's like that, when your total rivals are there, just
Yeah.
on the other side of the garage, does it change the dynamic in the team? I've always been fascinated by this. It was like the old Senna Prost thing years
Yeah.
ago, and PK Mansell, and it's a similar kind of thing with you guys. Just, I don't know, like you want to do well for the team, but you want to win it yourself, and you're looking over at them going, well, you just bugger off for a minute.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
how did it change through the season, especially coming up to Brands?
Yeah, it definitely gets harder as the season goes on, as it became more and more of a, the two Barwell cars fighting for the championship, which it basically became for the last round. And yeah, of course, changes the dynamic slightly, but I think I've not really been in the team aspect like that before, I don't think. So it was the kind of a little bit first time, but I think Barwell did a fantastic job of creating a good atmosphere, and we always spoke things through before they happened, which was great in terms of whether that was pit stop strategy or helping the other car if needed because you had a pit stop penalty or anything like that. So it was very clear from the beginning that we're working as a team until we get to the point where it's
Well, you're not.
hopefully between the two of us, because it was obvious, like you say, from round one that we were both competitive. The 63 car won race one, and Alex and myself won race two. So yeah, we came out of there, leading the championship, and yeah, that's it. It stayed a fierce battle throughout with a lot of the other cars as well. But I just think we were just a bit more consistent and made a lot less mistakes than a few other teams, and also took the opportunities when they were there.
Yeah, absolutely right. That's a bit more. I'm glad you said that. That's what it looked like from the outside. You just seemed to be very consistent. Both cars, looking from the outside inwards. Snetterton, unfortunately, it seemed to be the turning point. You ended up back in 10th. It was just again, just annoying, I
Yeah.
guess, more than anything else. I'm sure there's other words for it, but it was, yeah. When I forget where Rob and Ricky were, they were up at the top, weren't they? Did they win it? I can't remember, but
Yeah, they
you
came
were
second in the end. Yeah.
second. That was it. Yeah, must have, oh, 'cause it was Max Gertz in his lot won it, wasn't it? 2 seasons.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
It must have been a bit deflating on that one. I mean, I don't want to dwell on it, obviously, but it must have been deflating there.
Yeah, I mean it was a great weekend. Like for me personally as well, because I was set pole position for the pro qualifying, which gave us pole position for race two, and then we won race one, and then had a great start to race two, and then yeah, just a safety car infringement in the second stint meant that we crossed the line in the lead and thought we'd won the race, and kind of fairly won the race as well, to be honest, because what we were done for penalty wise was overtaking GT4s under yellow flags, which can be split second decisions, and the timing of the yellow flags and things like that. So it was felt tough to take for sure, but we had to move on. We were still in the championship fight. I think just 5 points behind going into the last two races. So but like you say, that is the turning point. I think we only lost the championship by 5 points or so in the end, and that was a big point swing in that race, about 20 odd points, because we went from winning the race to 10th. So yeah, it was a big swing, and yeah, definitely easy to look back now and say what if over that one.
Yeah, sure. And the other issue was at Brands. There was a safety car right on the pit window, wasn't there? And they closed it, and there was a long safety car period. And
Yeah.
again, that's one of those things. If that could have worked out differently. Because obviously you guys were running up in second, weren't you? You were running up at the front.
It was tricky. It felt like the last few races just didn't quite fall in our direction, really. We obviously had that GT4 yellow flag incident, and then at Donington we had a puncture from just brushing the tyre wall, but quite a few other cars were brushing the tyre wall and had damage as well. They just didn't pick up a puncture like us. And then at the last round, Rob and Ricky, they'd won the previous race at Donington, which meant they had the maximum success penalty for Brands Hatch, and then just
Yeah.
the way the safety cars kind of fell, it meant that they didn't lose as much track position with their penalty. So yeah, just didn't quite fall our way at the end, but that's racing. You know, like I say, it's easy to remember the things that didn't quite go your way or that were unlucky, and but we won 3 races. We had great season, lots of fastest lap pole positions, so we did a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely, and the whole team did as well, which I think is very important. I was actually in the garage at Brands Hatch. I wasn't supposed to be, actually. I wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
I was just sort of I was just passing, and someone came out with a little white cup. Said, "Would you like some whiskey?"
Yeah.
Whiskey. I went, I love my whiskey. I'll have a little one. And she just said, "Oh, come in." Oh no,
Yeah.
so and it was great seeing everyone celebrating together. Obviously, it was bittersweet for you guys, but it was a really cool atmosphere in the pit, and it was a real. You could tell it was a real team effort, and everyone had done really well.
Yeah, it's been a great bunch of boys and men and women that we've had the last few years, and I think the last couple of years or so the teams really stayed pretty much the same throughout, bar one or two. So yeah, in terms of mechanics, drivers, engineers, all getting on really well and really working as a team, and I think that really showed in our performance this year. And it was a great environment to be in, and yeah, fantastic team effort.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely right, and a very well deserved championship for the whole team.
Definitely.
Just a slightly happier end to the year. You had a few podiums. Was it Hockenheim and Magny Core and Catalonia and stuff in the European. Nice to have those as well, of course.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been a successful season for sure. We've had second place in the season in the championship in British GT, and then also second for me and Rob in the sprint series that in Europe as well, GT World Challenge. So yeah, just one race left now in Saudi Arabia next week, which is the last endurance race, and then yeah, that's it in terms of championship races this year. So yeah, we've been fighting, and a couple of second place finishes in championships is always nice. Like you say, would be look much better if they were both one place better, but it's no, it's still been a fantastic year.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a place to end the season in Jeddah, isn't it? On the Grand Prix circuit there.
Yeah.
Mental.
No, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. The track's quite unique, really fast flowing, kind of street circuit style. So walls very close to the edge of the track, and not many people have been there before, so it's going to be a real challenge. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be hot, humid. The race is going into the night, okay, but with floodlights. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of new experiences, which is always fun, and I quite enjoy when things are a little bit different. And yeah, it's it'll be a little bit outside everyone's comfort zone. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, great stuff. Obviously, wish you well in that one. Okay, I've just got a couple of questions from the comments, and then a couple of little fun ones, and then we'll let everyone wrap up because we've overrun. We always do. Sorry, folks. Firstly, Andy Forrest, who commented earlier, his son Hamish is in the Ginetta Juniors for some of the rounds next year, which is obviously on the British GP support. He has said that, well, I assume he's talking about you and not me, because he said that you come across as a nice guy, so he must be talking about you. He says you come across as a really nice guy with some great insights. He hopes you're on the British GT grid for 2025, and if you are, he'd like to come over and say hello. So I'm sure if that's the case, we can get that sorted. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Hamish is going to be a fan of yours next year.
Fantastic. No, we'll hopefully see you around on the paddock. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's good to see Andy. I'll be in touch. Okay, what else have we got? Okay, let's have a look here. We could talk success penalties now. This is more fun to talk about. Oh, good question here from Diffan Evans. He's a big BTCC fan and other racing as well. He says, do you manage to watch some of the support races if you have a spare 5 minutes?
Yeah, sometimes. It's funny how often we end up watching the support races more if the weather conditions are a bit changeable and we're trying to see what tires people are going on and things like that. So that's often when we tune in. But no, definitely if we get a spare bit of time, I like to watch them. The racing in the Ginetta Juniors has been great this year. So it's cool to have that on the same package as British GT. The Caterhams has been exciting when they've been on with us before as well. So yeah, I still, that obviously enjoy watching good racing, and yeah, it's always interesting to see how it's going. And often as well, I've had some friends racing in some of the Ginetta Championships or single seater championships, whether that's friends from karting or that I've made from doing iRacing and online racing and things like that. So yeah, try and keep an eye on how they're getting on as well.
Yeah, this is very, very cool. I need to say, firstly, well done to Alicia Plamovsky, who was on the support series this year. She's got a drive in F1 Academy, which is awesome today. And is it Linus Grandforce won the GB4, I believe, championship. He's very, very impressive. So well done to those guys. If you see this. Okay, I always ask these little fun questions at the end, and one ties into a question that like Diffan Evans has asked here. I would say, is there any other series that you'd like to try, whether it's the European Le Mans or the WEC or IndyCar, NASCAR, Supercars? And Diffan's asked if you would do BTCC before your career comes to an end.
I'd definitely love to have a go in touring cars. Like I said earlier, it's kind of what I watched a lot growing up, and yeah, watching like Giovinardi in the Vauxhall and Matt Neal and Jason Plato in the Seat and all those kind of cars are yeah, really, really enjoyable to watch. So yeah, I'd definitely like to have a go, and hopefully the championship keeps going and I can have a good crack at it at some point. But yeah, kind of focused on where I am at the moment, but it's definitely something that I'd like to do. And then yeah, in terms of any other series, I think obviously in terms of aspirational goals, I'd love to do the World Endurance Championship and race at Le Mans, and be a top sports car driver all around the world. But in terms of fun things, I'd definitely like to do a rally at some point, like a proper closed road or forest rally kind of thing. I wouldn't be very fast because of getting used to the pace notes and stuff like that would be really difficult. But just to say I've done it and have a go, and really feel like you're Colin McRae for a weekend would be cool. So yeah, that's definitely on the bucket list.
That'd be awesome. Go thumping through the Kielder Forest or something. That'd be yeah. I actually had Ashley Morris, young rally driver, on here. Yeah, she you can see the smile on her face whenever she talks about forest rallies. She's just like,
oh yeah,
oh yeah,
oh yeah. Between the trees, it's yeah, high stakes, but yeah, no, definitely something I'd like to do at some point.
Yeah, very cool stuff. And with the BTCC, obviously, you got Gordon Shedden and Rory Butcher at Knock Hill. So yeah, go and have a chat with those guys. No, it's brilliant. Thank you, Diffan. Okay, let's see what have we got here. There was another one that came in which ties into one of my questions, but I'll let someone else take the credit for it. Diffan, it's Diffan again. You've raced at many circuits outside the UK. Do you have a favourite and a least favourite? I guess it depends which ones you win at.
Yeah, doing well definitely helps. I'd say Spa's easily up there as a favourite of mine. Least favourite, it's always a tricky one. I'm not a big fan of circuits that are quite flat and kind of with a lot of runoff. So Misano kind of comes to mind, and I also had a little bit of a tough weekend there. But yeah, it's a bit more kind of almost like a big slab of concrete with the track drawn onto it, rather than a track made into the natural environment, which I much prefer. So yeah, in terms of styles of track, that's definitely what I prefer, which tends to be the more American and British style, but there's also loads of amazing European ones like Portimao, and Mugello is a really cool circuit which doesn't get enough credit. So yeah, it's some very lucky to have driven at some amazing places.
Yeah,
and then I'd say Bathurst would be the one of Bathurst and the Nordschleife are the two that are probably yet to do that would be on the list.
Yeah, they're the proper ones that are built into the surroundings, aren't they?
Oh
they're
yeah,
I'm absolutely with you on that. Nothing wrong with some new circuits, but some of them can be a bit sterile and the old. Yeah. It's only about Portimao. I actually flew over it on holiday this year, and I looked out the window and I went, "Oh, look, that's the Portimao circuit." My wife was like, "If you can identify a circuit from 35,000 feet, you're pretty sad."
Yeah. Oh, you know what you're talking about. One of the two.
which I can't even deny. I can't even have to go with it. Okie dokie. Last two. Have you got a favourite racing car that you've raced? And I'm sure Barwell won't take it wrong if it's not the Lambo. This is nothing against the other cars.
No, yeah. No, it definitely would be the Huracan. I mean, if I go, let's say Evo 1, which is the one that we won British GT Championship in. Obviously the biggest kind of championship win that we've had. And yeah, I've been very fortunate that since becoming a Lamborghini factory driver, I've actually not, well, fortunate in a way, I've driven the Lamborghini so many times, but it's meant that I've not actually driven anything else. So yeah, there's not actually a massive list to choose from. It's kind of between a couple of McLarens, a couple of Lambos, and the F4 car. So yeah, definitely the most success has come in that car, which is good memories in the Black Bull livery.
Yeah, excellent. Has a cool livery as well.
Yeah.
Okay, the last question, and it's a horrible question. I ask it to everyone, and I don't know why, because there's no answer to it.
Okay.
It's an absolute shocker. But yeah, but I haven't got to answer it, so that's all right. You've raced with and against some amazing drivers. I've got a list here. I'm not going to name them all, but I'm going to name a few. I mean, even guys on the British GT guys, you've had like Johnny Adam and Ian Loggy, Richard Neary, and guys like Nick Tandy and Oliver Jarvis and Lawrence Van Tour and Maro Engel, who's just won in Macau, isn't he?
Yeah.
Kelvin van der Linde, Renger van der Zande, Augusto Farfus, Matt Campbell, James Collado, Le Mans when he raced against him, Gianmaria Bruni, who's been on here for a chat, lovely guy, Kevin Estra, Earl Bamber, Seb Bourdais, Kevin Magnussen you raced against, Mike Rockenfeller, Colton Herta, Lando Norris, Montoya, Jimmy Johnson, Kamui Kobayashi, Scott Dixon's quite good.
Yeah.
Even more than that, I mean, but you've raced some.
Yeah.
You've shared the track with some amazing drivers and been in close quarters with them. Is there any that stand out as being maybe not better, but just kind of special or a bit different in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the easy one to mention is Lando in terms of what they've gone on to achieve. And, we were racing against each other when we were much younger. So it's very cool to see him doing so well in Formula One. And, they've worked very hard to be there and doing a fantastic job, which is great to see. And it's always tough to choose between the drivers, isn't it? I think there's a lot of top GT drivers which probably aren't as well known in terms well known in terms of motorsport fans, but outside of your Formula One and stuff, I think drivers like Kevin Estre and Mirko Bortolotti and these kind of top GT drivers are extremely talented, and often a lot of them were on the edge of going to F1, but for normally political reasons rather than talent or whatever, weren't quite able to get a seat, or just bad luck or timing or whatever that was. So
I think one of those for me is always Andre Lotterer. He's so very, very good, isn't he? And he had the one race, didn't he, as well, the test.
Yeah. So no, it's cool to see, and you always get the good clips of S3 and some of the other top GT drivers, driving around the Nordschleife when half the track's wet and half the track's dry, and not only keeping it on the track but going at 110% while doing so. And that's always cool to see. And it's cool to share the track with these guys. Sometimes you're a little bit quicker than them, sometimes they're a little bit quicker than you. It just depends on a lot of circumstances. So it's always good fun, and hopefully I can put my name even more kind of in that kind of top bracket of GT racing drivers in the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully if the opportunities come up, I'm absolutely sure you'll be able to to get up into that level. As you say, you certainly got the ability for it from what I've seen. That's fantastic. That's a great way to end, I think. Firstly, guys, thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the questions and comments and everything. I hope we've covered everything. Certainly tried. But also, biggest thanks go to you, Sandy. Thank you very, very much for coming on. We've gone on a bit longer. We always do, unfortunately. But no, thank you very, very much for coming on. It's been great speaking with you. And again, sorry for the ambush at Brands Hatch.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me on. It's been fun, and always nice talking about past racing experiences, and hopefully people enjoyed.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, the comments coming in, looks like everyone's really enjoyed it. So what a genuine and lovely guy. Wishing you all the very best for the future. And that obviously starts with Jeddah. So we wish you all the very best for that. Starting with.
Thanks very much.
Great stuff. Excuse me. Thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. We'll be back next week. Tune in Thursday night to the page. We'll be announcing who is on next week. But until then, thank you very much, Sandy. Brilliant speaking with you. And all the best for Jeddah and beyond.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.